I'm Alex, and let me just say, family can be the gift that keeps on giving, and not always in the best way. If you've ever had a sibling who thinks the world revolves around them, you'll know what I mean. My brother Jason is the kind of guy who thinks sharing is something other people should do, and he's the one who should be getting the biggest slice of the pie, whether he's earned it or not. Let me give you some backstory to make sense of where this all started. I grew up in a pretty tight-knit family. It was always my mom, dad, my older brother Jason, and me. Jason, the firstborn, was always the golden child in my parents' eyes. He was charming, outgoing, and good at making people like him. If there was a crowd, Jason was the one who'd be at the center, talking everyone's ear off, making them laugh, and generally convincing them that he was some sort of prodigy. My parents adored him for this. He was the special one, and I was I was the second-born, and my role seemed to be to follow him around and pick up the scraps of attention when he wasn't around. As kids, it was pretty annoying, to say the least. Jason got away with a lot more than I ever did. For example, if I stayed out 5 minutes past curfew, it was the end of the world. But if Jason came home 3 hours late, my parents would shrug it off with he's just having fun. Yeah, it was tough to deal with, but I tried not to let it get to me. I had my friends, my hobbies, and eventually, I learned how to keep my head down and focus on things that mattered to me. But, of course, it never quite sat right with me that Jason was so effortlessly, and often obnoxiously, the favorite. Fast forward a few years, and now we're both adults. My parents are older, Jason's gotten even more arrogant, if that's even possible, and I'm just doing my thing, working my job, minding my business. That's when the whole helping with college tuition thing came up. I always had a soft spot for my nephew Ethan, Jason's son. Ethan was a smart, grounded kid. He didn't have Jason's flair for attention, but he was hardworking and determined. He made it clear early on that he wanted to go to college and had big aspirations, and I respected that. Jason, of course, wasn't exactly thrilled at the idea of Ethan pursuing his own path. Jason had his own business, which he often touted as being better than a degree anyway, and he thought that would be enough for his son. But Ethan was set on going to college, and that's when my promise came into play. One evening, I was hanging out at my parents' house when Jason came over for dinner. Now, before I tell you what happened, let me explain one thing. Jason isn't exactly the kind of guy who likes asking for help, he demands it. And so, without any preamble, he dropped a bombshell on me. "Alex," Jason said, his voice all too casual, "I need your help with something. Ethan's college tuition is due, and I don't have the funds to cover it. I've got some business expenses, and I've got to take care of that first. But you know, Ethan's my son, so I want him to have every opportunity." I was taken aback, but I didn't say anything right away. If you know Jason, you'll know that he's a master manipulator when it comes to family matters. He knows exactly how to make you feel guilty, and he's the type to throw around family and responsibility in a way that makes it hard to say no. After a long pause, I looked at him and said, "Okay, I can help. But you know, I've got my own expenses too. So we'll need to figure something out." Jason waved me off, clearly not interested in any of the details. "Don't worry about that," he said with a grin. "I'm sure you can make it work. It's for Ethan. He's family. We all want him to have a shot, right?" I knew I should have asked for more specifics, but Jason was right about one thing. I did want Ethan to have a chance at something more than Jason's business could offer him. So I agreed to pay for the first semester of college tuition. Jason promised that once he got his business sorted out, he'd pay me back. Yeah, right? Now, let's fast forward a few months. By this point, I had already paid for Ethan's tuition. I had been keeping up with everything and making sure Ethan was on track with his grades, checking in to see if there was anything I could do. But one evening, when I was scrolling through social media, I stumbled upon something that stopped me dead in my tracks. It was a post from Jason. But this wasn't about Ethan's college or anything remotely related to family. No, this post was a picture of Jason lounging on a beach, sunglasses on, a cocktail in hand, with the caption, "Living my best life. #blessed #vacation vibes." The man had spent the money I gave him for his son's tuition on luxury vacations. I felt a surge of anger rising in me. There were no words in that post to indicate he had used the money for anything other than a good time. And at that moment, I knew. Jason wasn't going to pay me back, and he wasn't going to help his son with college. Instead, he was living it up while I was picking up the slack. I couldn't believe it. I immediately texted Jason. "Hey, Jason, just saw your post. I thought the money I gave you was for Ethan's tuition, not your vacation fund. Can you explain this?" I watched the dots appear and disappear for what felt like an eternity before I finally got a reply. His response? "It's my money now, Alex. Get over it." I stared at Jason's message for what felt like an eternity. Get over it. That was all he had to say. Like the money didn't matter. Like Ethan's education didn't matter. I couldn't believe how entitled he was acting. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was willful disrespect. And here I was, working hard, keeping my word. And he was living it up like the money I'd given him for my nephew's future was just another line on his credit card. But I wasn't about to let this slide. I didn't need to get into a huge argument with him over text. Jason had a way of turning everything into a fight where he somehow came out on top, even when he was wrong. No, I needed to teach him a lesson he'd never forget. Something that would make him realize that not everything was about him. And maybe, just maybe, he'd finally understand the value of a promise and what family actually means. First thing the next day, I had a plan. It wasn't some small revenge. I wanted to hit him where it hurt, and where he couldn't easily escape. If he thought he could brush me off like that, I was about to show him the consequences of his actions. I started by gathering evidence. I had screenshots of his posts. I had receipts for the tuition payment I'd made. I had everything I needed to expose his selfishness and make sure he couldn't spin this into a tale of misunderstanding. But I knew I needed more than just the receipts. I needed impact. Jason was the kind of guy who lived for his social media following, loved to parade around his successes, which were mostly inflated, and would do anything to keep up the image of being a successful, generous guy. So what better way to get back at him than by throwing a little spotlight on his true character? But before I went public, I needed to make sure Jason knew what was coming. I didn't want him to just be blindsided. I wanted him to stew in the realization of what was about to happen. So I gave him one last chance to make things right. I sent him a text. "Jason, you've got two options. Either you send me back the money for Ethan's tuition, or I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did. It's your choice." I was pretty confident he wouldn't take me seriously. Jason was arrogant, sure, but he was also a coward when it came to confrontation that could cost him something. I figured he'd ignore me, maybe even try to make excuses, but that would just make it easier for me to go public with the truth. An hour passed, then 2, then 3. No response. Typical. That night, I was sitting at home, just scrolling through Instagram when I saw it. Jason had posted yet another vacation photo, this time of him on some ridiculous yacht, decked out in designer clothes. I could almost hear him bragging through the picture. The caption? "Some people work their whole lives and still don't get to experience the good life. #blessed, #living my best life." I couldn't let this slide anymore. I grabbed my phone and started typing out a post. My fingers flew across the screen as I crafted the perfect message to make sure everyone knew who Jason really was. And to add a little twist, I tagged some of his close business associates and family friends, people who needed to know the truth about him. Some people like to pretend they're doing it for family. But when it comes down to it, some people will take the money you give them for their kids' college tuition and spend it on luxury trips for themselves. If you've ever wondered where your money went after someone promised to help you with your education, this is it. Don't believe the picture-perfect posts. Trust me, they're not all they seem. #family first, #actions speak louder. I didn't just post it and run though. Oh no. I made sure to screenshot my message and send it directly to Jason, giving him a little warning before it went live. I wanted him to feel the weight of the consequences. I hit post and watched as the comments started to roll in almost immediately. My phone pinged nonstop. "Wait, what's going on? Jason did this. He promised you tuition money and spent it on this. Dude, that's messed up. How could he do that?" The comments flooded in, and as expected, Jason's friends and followers started questioning him. Some of them came to his defense, of course, but the tide had already turned. Jason had made a huge mistake by underestimating me. It didn't take long before Jason called me. His voice was shrill, and I could almost hear the panic in it. "Alex, what did you do? You can't just go around telling people my business. You're embarrassing me. This is private." I wasn't having any of it. I leaned back in my chair, calm as ever, and let him yell for a while before I responded. "Jason, you think it's embarrassing? Maybe you should have thought about that before you used my nephew's tuition to fund your yacht vacation. Now everyone knows who you really are." There was a pause, and I could almost see the wheels turning in his head, trying to figure out how to turn this back on me. "You think you're so clever, huh?" Jason spat. "This is ridiculous. You're just jealous of me. You've always been jealous of me. I let out a sharp laugh. Jealous? Of you? I'm just trying to make sure people know that you're not the golden boy you pretend to be. You're selfish, Jason. And now everyone knows it. He started to go off again, but I cut him off. The thing is, Jason, I don't care what you think anymore. You've burned all your bridges with me, and with the people who actually care about you. So, good luck with your business and your Instagram followers. You're going to need it. I hung up, not even waiting for a response. This was just getting started, and I wasn't going to stop until Jason learned that actions have consequences. But little did I know, the backlash was just the beginning. People Jason had worked with for years were starting to call him out. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, notifications from social media, messages from family. Even Ethan texted me to thank me. But the real drama was yet to unfold. The next few hours were nothing short of a whirlwind. Jason had tried to call me several times, but I didn't pick up. I wasn't interested in hearing his excuses anymore. By the time I went to bed, the damage had already been done. My phone was buzzing every few minutes with messages from family, people Jason had worked with, and even some of my friends who had seen the post. But there was one message that stood out. It was from my mother. She had a simple, to-the-point text, "Call me." I hadn't spoken to her in a while. We'd always gotten along, but with my brother being his usual self, it was hard to keep the peace. I immediately knew what this was about. She had seen the post. I called her back. The phone rang, then went a voicemail. I wasn't sure if she was just busy or if she was working through her emotions. I wasn't exactly sure what was going to come out of her mouth, but I figured it was only a matter of time before I heard from her. The following morning, the phone call came. It was my mom, and she didn't sound like herself at all. There was a sharp edge to her voice that I had never heard before. "Alec," she said, her voice trembling just a little. "What have you done?" I braced myself for her disappointment, but I wasn't about to apologize. I knew what Jason had done was wrong, and I wasn't going to back down from calling him out for it. "I'm sorry, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "But I had to do something. He's been taking advantage of me for years. And now he's stolen money that was supposed to help Ethan. What do you want me to do?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could tell she was thinking, processing everything I had just said. "You don't understand, Alec," she finally replied. "Your brother's been in financial trouble for a long time. For years, we've been helping him with his mortgage payments, covering his car payments, and making sure he had what he needed to get by. We've been supporting him through all of this. And now I find out that he's been using the money you sent him for his son's tuition on luxury trips." I was shocked. I hadn't known the extent of what my parents had been doing for Jason. They had been financially propping him up, doing everything they could to keep him afloat. I never thought to ask about it, thinking he was just struggling on his own. But apparently, it was a lot more than that. My mom's voice cracked slightly as she continued. "Alec, I'm so sorry. We've been enabling him. I should have seen it. But this is the last straw. We can't keep doing this. And I don't want to see him drag Ethan into his mess anymore. He's got to learn there are consequences." I sat in stunned silence, letting her words sink in. I'd always known my brother was a bit irresponsible, but it was more than just reckless spending. This was a betrayal on a whole different level. He had manipulated everyone in the family, including my mom and dad, for years. And now, the truth was out in the open. "Mom, I'm sorry," I said, guilt creeping in. "I didn't know. I didn't mean for any of this to go this far, but he needed to be stopped." "I know, Alex," she said softly. "But don't worry. We've got Ethan's back now. We're sending him the money for tuition, all of it. He doesn't deserve to be dragged through this because of your brother." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, knowing that at least Ethan was going to be taken care of. But even as my mom reassured me that they would help him out, I could feel the tension building in the air. This was going to change everything. The family wasn't just going to stop helping Jason. They were going to actively help Ethan now. My brother had burned every bridge with this stunt. And as the news spread, my phone started buzzing with messages from more family members. "Hey, Alex, we've been looking at the situation. You're right. Jason's been taking advantage of us for far too long. We're stopping all financial support, and we're helping Ethan directly from now on. I think it's time someone put their foot down. Your brother's a fool. If he thinks he can keep taking from the family without consequences, he's got another thing coming. You've got my support, Alec. Don't worry about it." And it wasn't just family members. Jason's close friends, the ones who had always idolized him as this self-made businessman, started to distance themselves too. Jason's reputation was getting dragged through the mud, And while he may have put on a confident front, I could tell from the comments on his posts that people were starting to question him. By the afternoon, Jason sent me another message. This one was shorter than the others, much more desperate. "You've made your point, Alex. But this isn't over. You're going to regret this." I didn't even bother responding to it. His threats no longer had the same power they used to. He was running on fumes, trying to salvage what little he had left. But what really hit home was when my dad called me that evening. "Alex," he started, his voice unusually firm. "Your mother and I have been talking. We've decided we're not going to help Jason anymore. I don't care what kind of pressure he puts on us. Your nephew, on the other hand, is getting the full support. We'll make sure he gets through school without a problem." I felt a sense of relief, but also a deep, growing resentment for my brother. My parents had always been there for him, even when he didn't deserve it. And now, they were choosing Ethan. They were doing what was right. As the evening went on, the family's attitude toward Jason shifted. My brother, who had been treated like the golden child for years, was now the black sheep. His calls for help went unanswered. The money we had always sent to him for his bills and mortgage was now being redirected to Ethan's tuition fund. The checks came in, one by one, and each time Jason's name was left off. Jason was, in every sense, cut off. It wasn't just the money that was drying up, though. It was the support, the adoration, the respect. Jason had been living in a bubble for so long, surrounded by people who believed his lies. And now that bubble had burst. My family was done with him. And that was just the beginning. Because as Jason scrambled to find a way to save face, things were about to get even worse. It's been a few months since everything blew up. Things have settled down, and the dust has finally started to clear, but the changes have been monumental. Jason hasn't been a part of any family gatherings. Hell, he hasn't even bothered to reach out to anyone, except, of course, to continue complaining to me, but I've learned to shut him down. It's almost as if he's vanished from our lives entirely. As I look back, it's wild to think about how different things are now. At the beginning of all this, Jason's smug arrogance had us all convinced that he was untouchable, that he could get away with anything as long as he smiled and flashed those ridiculous, expensive sunglasses of his. Now, he's the one who's struggling, and he's had to watch everyone he used to rely on walk away from him, piece by piece. After the social media post and the backlash that followed, Jason's reputation, what little of it there was, crumbled. People he had been close to stopped answering his calls, and the lavish trips he'd been going on were suddenly a source of shame rather than bragging rights. The guilt started to gnaw at him, I'm sure, but instead of owning up to what he did, he doubled down on his arrogance. I suppose it's easier to pretend everything's fine when the truth is too painful to face. I haven't heard from him much lately, and when I do, it's always about the same tired excuses, how unfair it all is, how I ruined his life, and how I've betrayed the family. At this point, it's laughable. I just let his messages sit in my inbox unread. I'm not the one who needs to learn a lesson anymore. He's the one who's been exposed for who he really is. What's been more surprising, though, is how much stronger the family has become since cutting him off. My parents, especially, are finally at peace with their decision. They used to walk on eggshells around Jason, trying to cover for him, fix his mistakes, even make excuses for him. But since everything blew up, they've been more open with me, more honest, and I can sense the weight is lifted from their shoulders. For the first time in a long time, they're focusing on themselves and their well-being instead of enabling Jason's toxic behavior. I won't lie, it feels strange at times. The dynamic in the family has shifted. We still talk about Jason, but it's not in the way we used to. There's no longer any worry or guilt when his name comes up. He's been erased from the family equation, and in his place, Ethan has become a symbol of what family should be. The support we've been pouring into him over the last few months has been incredible. He's thriving, both in school and in his personal life. It's like a weight was lifted from his shoulders, too. And seeing him succeed, knowing we've made the right choice, has been more rewarding than I could have imagined. As for me, well, I've moved forward as well. After confronting Jason and dealing with the fallout, I realized something. I don't have to carry the burden of trying to fix everything anymore. I'm no longer responsible for fixing my brother's mistakes or for holding the family together when he's burning every bridge in sight. I've learned to set boundaries, to say no when I need to, and to focus on the people who actually appreciate my help. I've been spending more time with friends, with Ethan, and even just enjoying my own space. For the first time in years, I'm not constantly trying to manage the fallout of my brother's messes. Jason has reached out a few times, but I've completely cut him off. Honestly, I don't feel bad about it. I've given him every chance to redeem himself, and all he's done is manipulate, lie, and take advantage of everyone who cared about him. The last time he contacted me, he sent a long, rambling message about starting over and how he was trying to be a better person. I rolled my eyes and hit the block button before I could even finish reading it. At this point, I'm done. He's had his chances, and he's squandered them all. The truth is, Jason was never the brother I thought he was. He was never the person I wanted to believe in. And in a twisted way, this whole mess was a blessing in disguise. It forced me to see the truth, not just about him, but about myself and my role in this dysfunctional cycle. I can't keep enabling someone who refuses to grow. And by cutting him off, by finally standing up for Ethan and the rest of the family, I've created a healthier space for all of us. As for the rest of the family, things have been better. We've had a few family gatherings since everything went down, and they've been so much more relaxed, so much more real. There's no pretending anymore. We're all just being ourselves, and it feels good. My parents have become more engaged with Ethan, and it's clear that they're going to continue supporting him, no questions asked. He's already enrolled in college with a full ride, and I couldn't be prouder of him. But Jason? Well, he's still out there, lost in his own mess, and I'm not sure what the future holds for him. Honestly, I don't care anymore. The truth is, I've got better things to focus on, things that matter. And Jason? He's not one of them. It's a strange feeling, knowing that the family is finally free from his toxicity. But it's a good kind of strange. Because for the first time in a long time, I can say that I'm genuinely at peace. And that's something I didn't think I'd ever get back.